So in this first demo, we're going to be looking at buffers and streams. We're going to be looking at two types of streams, readable streams and writable streams. So a readable stream is an abstraction of a data source, and our data source in this case is going to be a file longtext.json. Okay, so we can see that this file is fairly large. Okay, it contains a bunch of random characters. And its total length is 143,327 bytes. Our abstraction of our destination, where we're going to write our data, is going to be a file copy.json, which doesn't exist yet. Okay. So data begins flowing from the data source, our longtext.json file, as soon as you attach a data event to the source. Okay, so as soon as we attach this event, the data starts flowing. And it flows one chunk at a time. Chunk is a buffer type object, which can take a maximum size of 65,536 bytes. And we can see that that is going to be less than the size of our entire file. So we're going to have to receive multiple chunks in order to process this file. Okay. Now, each time we receive a new chunk of data, it's going to print out a message, new chunk received, followed by the length of the chunk. And then it's going to use destination.write. So this is our writable stream.write. It's going to write that chunk to our destination. Okay, so it's sort of data's coming in and it's going to go out into this other stream after we've done a bit of processing, in this case, just printing out the length of it. When the data source runs out, when there's no more chunks of data to be transmitted, the end event is emitted from the stream. In this case, our handler will print out a message, finished reading data, and then it's going to also signal to the write stream that there's no more data by using destination.end or writable.end. This function has a callback that you can give to it to execute after the destination file has been signaled. In this case, we use it to print out a message, finish writing data. Okay, so let's run this first program first and let's look at the output. Okay, so we can see that we have three chunks of data. Okay, the first one is 65,536 bytes, which makes sense. That's the maximum chunk size. And we receive that again. Okay, the total of that is going to be still less than 143,327. So the remaining 12,255 bytes is sent in the third chunk. Okay, each of these chunks gets printed, the length gets printed to the screen, and then we write it to our destination file. Okay, once we run out of data, the end event fires, which prints out finished reading data, which will then trigger our call to destination.end, which will print out finished writing data. Okay. Now, one of the key things that's important to know about this is that the chunk itself is a buffer type object, which means that you cannot, it doesn't print as you think it would. If you do console.log on the chunk object, it's going to print out in a buffer type. It's not going to print out the text inside of it. Okay, so let's run that. So over here we see that what printed out is buffer followed by a bunch of data over here, and it says that there's 65,486 more bytes. So this is printing out the sort of raw binary zeros and ones that's represented inside of the data. And if you want to print out the actual string of text that's encoded, you need to use the toString method to convert it from a buffer into a string. Now, before I do this, I'm also going to apply a substring method. And this is just because I do not want to print out 65,000 characters all at once. I'll just print out the first 20 characters or so, so it doesn't flood my output. Okay. So this would represent the first chunk of data, okay, or the first 20 characters in the chunk of data. And then after 65,536 bytes, this would be the first couple of characters inside the second chunk of file and the third one. Okay, so it's important to know that chunks are just sort of buffer objects. They're just binary data. And if you want to operate them using string methods, you have to convert them into string objects.